Right, I'd like to thank everybody again for joining us for another WKS Zoom podcast. This time it's with Tony Ives. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much, Craig.
Brilliant.
Nice to speak to you.
Yes, yeah. Do you want to start off by telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a guitarist, singer-songwriter. I've been playing most of my adult life, as I suppose a lot of people have. And obviously, over the last year, things have changed a bit radically. I've been the last 15 years or so, I've been with a cover band playing sort of weddings and parties and things, and then sort of doing my own gigs off the back of that. Been involved in music education, sound recording, worked in schools, hosted open mics, things like that, really.
Okay.
So pretty, trying to kind of, I guess, have a sort of portfolio career from music, really, which is, I guess, what a lot of people have to do. Yes. Play a bit, teach a bit, record a bit, anything to make a buck.
Right, fair play. So how did it all start for you then? When did you, musically, what?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I mean, I guess like a lot of people at school, it was interesting. I mean, I'm reasonably old. I went to school in the 70s, and music in schools in the 70s wasn't at all like it is now, in the sense it was very much delivered classically, and it was kind of take it or leave it. And obviously, I was really fascinated with the drums, pop music, the drums, and the guitar. And I was fortunate enough to have a friend, Nick, who I still see, and me and he was like a really great guitarist, and I had rubbishy versions of all the songs that he could play. And me and he we lived just around the corner from each other, so we used to kind of get together and jam these songs, and obviously then from there formed a band. And of course, because it was the punk era at the time, so right. The songs weren't too bad to cover. You could they were very approachable, and that kind of ethos of do it yourself, play it yourself, record it yourself, market it yourself, was all part of that. It was like there was a proper wave, and I guess it's cyclic, isn't it? I guess it comes along every so often, but I was fortunate enough that the few years I was at school, everybody was into music, everybody played, so there was gigs. And we blagged our way into playing a local church hall, and sort of promoted the gig ourselves. And it was really successful. Obviously, I mean, the great thing about school is you've got a captive audience, haven't you, in school? So you can advertise, and you've got, I don't know, 1,200 people that will see your advertising. Anyway, the gig went really well, but the problem was the people that rented us the village hall were a bit scared, because we were ostensibly kids, and another guy who's become a lifelong friend, a local community policeman by the name of Dave German, basically realized very quickly that if he organized these gigs and put his name to it, then there would be no issues with regards to hiring the hall and secure, all of those boxes would be checked. So that's what he did. So of course we had, there was probably half a dozen bands from the school that used to play. And as the sort of thing generated, there was a PA company that got involved, and, it was brilliant. It was like I suppose you'd call it a cooperative these days, although none of us really realized that's what it was, and this went on for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I suppose. Most, a couple of times a month there'd be a gig, and there'd be a big band playing. Some of the young up and coming bands would play as well. And that was it, really. I mean, I was hooked, really. I was hooked, just like a lot of us, I guess. I was an addict to playing live, just loved it.
So when did you start sort of writing tunes then?
Yeah, pretty much from the ground up, really. I mean, I would say some of my early efforts were a bit shocking, but you know, because it was the kind of punk era, I can remember, oh my goodness, I probably still got the lyrics of them kicking around somewhere. But you know, so and Dave, bless his heart, he funded us to go into a studio and record a tape cassette, a tape cassette of our songs. And in amongst them, I would say it's probably 50-50 split. They were, you know, 50-50 hours, 50-50 covers, I guess. One of the ones we did, I can remember then, one of the popular ones we did was we did a revamp of Trumpton, you know, the kiddies cartoon, with a kind of a break point of pew pew Barney McGrew, cuppa dibble grub, and then away it would go, you know, away it would fly. And so he paid us to go down to this studio, and the studio was in Roach in Cornwall, and it was owned by Martin Griffin. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether you've heard of Martin Griffin, but Martin Griffin actually did a few albums with Hawkwind. Yeah. And we were mad on Hawkwind. We were crazy on Hawkwind. And Martin was another one. It's amazing really how these people shape you, you know, because we were, it was like being let into the Magic Kingdom. I mean, I'm passionate about recording music. You know, I've got a studio, and I just absolutely adore it. And I think a lot of that is because in the early days, you could quite often be in a band and there would be no physical evidence of the band ever existing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You know, you might have definitely. A couple of crappy, you know, these days you can record it on a telephone and it doesn't sound too bad, does it? You know? Yeah. So as soon as I walked into this studio, I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And I know, well, sadly, Martin's no longer with us. Sadly, Martin died 2 years ago, but I was friends with him from you know, I don't know, 82 up till then. And I just, they weren't at all condescending towards us. You know, we'd never recorded before. We didn't have a clue. You know, we were like kids in a sweet shop, and all our gear probably sounded awful and our guitars were terrible and that. But anyway, they did it. And we had, I don't know, we probably pressed 500 of these cassettes. They're still, funnily enough, I did have a friend send me one a couple of years back saying, you never believe this, I found this in my cupboard. But, you know, Martin was just so encouraging, and, you know, the seeds were sown, really. I've never had any kind of, what's the word, fame. I've always just played locally, but, you know, still had a great time doing it, you know. Superb,
absolutely superb. So what sort of stuff have you got out there now then?
Right, well, as with this year, I mean, I'm sure, you know, people listening to this will be the same. I mean, my last gig was March the 8th, 2020. Yeah. So I literally did a Saturday night with the band of Gruff Nuts. I did Saturday night at the Hash Harriers, which is like a local running group in the Bedford Hotel in Tavistock. And then I did a cheeky Sunday one my own, like a little solo one on Sunday, which I always like to do because then the gear's in the car, so I don't have to unload it all. Yeah. So I sneak away. And it's funny, isn't it, when you do it, if you do it often enough, saving yourself a load on the car is like, way, it's brilliant. So I did that, brought all the gear home, not really expecting it to go like it had, and then bang, we're into this lockdown. So it's a kind of a case of like, wow, I've always been, you know, I've been writing songs all of my life, and I was like, well, what can I do to stop myself going mad? So I've got a little sort of playing room, little practice room up the top of the garden sort of thing. And I was just trotting up and down there, my drum kit's up there. So I was just trotting up and down there and whacking away on the drum kit and things. And then I started kind of coming up with, I mean, I guess like everybody, I wrote a stupid song about COVID. And then I made that into a video and put it out. And I don't know, 500 people looked at it, and I thought, well, maybe there's an appetite for this. So I just went through and sort of collated my songs, and found sort of 5 that I felt kind of fitted roughly together. And there's one on the, you know, put them onto an EP basically. And there's one that goes back 20 years. There's one that I wrote in sort of early 2000. And then there's a couple that I wrote over lockdown. And there's a couple that go back, you know, sort of 2 or 3 years in it. So there's a, you know, but I kind of felt it's I don't want to use the word unprecedented, because there's an unprecedented use of the word unprecedented at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I kind of felt, you know, this is an incredible situation. I need to explore the online world, because I guess normally I would do what most live musicians do. I would press up 20 or 30 CDs. I'd take them to a gig. During my sort of solo gigs, there's plenty of scope to play songs, you know, that are my own, in amongst things, you know what I mean? And at the end of the gig, just say, oh, if anybody liked any of these songs that they don't recognize, you know, give us a $5 and I'll give you a CD kind of thing. But of course, that opportunity isn't there. So I thought I'd explore the online world of Spotify and Apple Music and all of that. So,
okay, so what's your EP called?
Well, I have it. Let's hold it up for you. I don't know whether you can see that. It's called Solar Powered.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be a clever sort of use of symbols. That's all the beautiful things are solar powered.
Okay.
I don't know how good you got that. Yeah.
Nice.
And then so there's solar powered is kind of the you know, without getting too hippie, I suppose when you consider a pandemic and the way things are at the moment, let's face it, you know, it doesn't really matter what we own, what cars we have, you know. All right, it probably does matter what guitars we have, but you know what I mean? I think it's turned a lot of things on its head.
Yeah.
And the idea of lyrically, the idea of solar powered is to just appreciate the permanence of nature and the beauty that is around us. So that's the kind of title track, if you like, that's on it.
Okay. So where can people get hold of it then?
Just go on Spotify and look up Tony Ives.
Okay. Have you got anything
or Apple Music?
Have you got anything on YouTube?
I haven't done a video yet. That's my next little task. I'm building up for it. Getting used to the idea of doing a live. I was going to maybe try a Facebook Live. But yeah, if they go onto Spotify or look on my website, Tony Ives Music, tonyivesmusic.com, if you have a look at that. And I've got a Facebook page as well. But it'll all point you to Spotify or Apple Music, or, you know. Obviously, if somebody wants old school like me, if somebody actually wants a CD, if they PM me or, you know, message me through the Facebook, I'm very happy to send a CD to people.
Brilliant.
It's funny, we're all listening to MP3s at the moment, and I urge everyone once in a while to dig a CD out or a vinyl and have a listen, because it doesn't half sound better.
Yeah. And who would you most like to collaborate with?
Well, I've got a friend up the road, Dave, and he's got a friend, Ben. Dave was in a group called the Light Assembly years ago up in Scotland, and Ben was the Van Daniels, which I've heard of. And I kind of do little projects with them. So I drum for them and record them and help Dave with his recording. And Dave helps me. He's very good with marketing and bits and pieces. So he helps me with the website and bits and pieces like that. So we try and kind of collaborate that way. I mean, up until March, I was flat out, you know, because I'd got a group of got a youth group that I used to go and do an evening a week, just helping them with their music. And obviously, so, you know, a couple of gigs a week, and then zipping off to teach some people as well. So it was great, you know, it was everything going, and a little bit of recording here and there. There's a lot of, I mean, I'm a bit, I'm a bit fussy about the recording, just in the sense that because I've got all my gear in there, you know, if I take on a band, the first thing I've got to do is spend about a day hoofing all of my gear out to bring their gear in. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody wants to use their own kit, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So I tend to kind of, you know, I tend to like do a duo, and also I don't like recording covers. I tend to only record original material. So generally, you know, it's people that I know and I've picked to record, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of really good studios that have invested, you know, 50 or 60,000 pounds. Well, mine in that, you know. So I come at it more from a musician's perspective, I guess. I mean, I've got an old Pro Tools rig up there, and you know, I've done bands. I've done some good, you know, most of the bands I do always say to me, "Oh, well, I'll come back. Well, you know, we'll see you again." And they always go on. You know, it's nice. They always go on to bigger things.
Yes.
But it's just that thing, you know. It takes. You can imagine how long it takes to, you know. There's a bass amp up there. There's guitar amps. There's you know, there's a whole band setup up there. Yeah. Well, that just means I've got to move all of that out,
and then move it back in when you're done,
and then move it all back in. Yeah. That's it.
What you know, what's been the best bit of advice that you've been given then?
That's a great question, Craig. I think best bit of advice I've been given. I suppose keep at it and enjoy it. Enjoy it for what, you know. That's something that Martin always said, is enjoy it for what it is. Don't do it to get someone else out of it. Just make sure you're enjoying what you're in, because it might be all you get.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
You know.
So who inspires you then to make music?
But bands wise, I loved, well, I'm going to date myself a bit now. When I was younger, I used to love Led Zeppelin, obviously, and Rush. I was a massive Rush fan. And sort of in later life, obviously Bowie. In later life, more sort of, I kind of like, I do like a bit of back pickup naughty boy rock, really. You know, I like a bit of T-Rex. I like a bit of Iggy Pop. That kind of thing, really. Yeah. Summer Rock, me, AC/DC and all, and Black Sabbath, you know, things like that. My own music doesn't generally sound like that, though. That's the strange thing. I tend to sound, I would say, if I was going to say what I sounded like, I'd say perhaps Crowded Housey, kind of, maybe a bit Bowie. Lots of people say Bowie. God, I'd be very happy to be as creative as that man. But, you know, it's weird, isn't it? You know, because I do tend to, if I put on music, it'll be, you know, Audio Slave, or it'll be, you know, it'll be something fairly thumping. And obviously in the band, you know, our set is that Killers, Audio Slave, Kaisers, all of that sort of malarkey.
Right.
You know. Right. It puffs us out a bit, actually, to be honest. We get a bit knackered now doing it, but
brilliant.
They are.
Brilliant. So what's next for you then? What, you know, what do you think's next?
Well, I'm just going to pedal this CD until we get you know, until we get let out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and get involved with that. I mean, it does, you know, it's new territory. I've collated another sort of 2 EPs worth of songs. And my intention is to find, I can't really afford to go the sort of, I went the CD baby route to put them on Spotify.
Yeah.
Which I would have to say, you know, they do the business. They definitely do the business, but you don't, you know, what do you get paid? I don't know, 0.6 of a penny for a play.
Yeah.
It's a quarter of a peanut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas obviously if you're selling CDs, you know, you sell 10 CDs at a gig, you know, you've got an extra 50 quid.
Yeah. Makes a
you know what I mean?
difference.
So yeah, so I'm not going to necessarily go down the CD baby route again. Not that they've been unhelpful; they've been brilliant. But I think what I'm looking at the moment is to actually get on board with a publisher so that I can actually put the other like 2 EPs worth of songs up, not bother putting them on Spotify as much,
Right.
but just see if I can sort of generate a bit of play that way.
Okay.
So just perhaps put the CDs up on my website and just, you know, peddle and market them that way. I've sent a few things off to BBC Introducing. I'm not, you know, I've heard back from them, but I mean, I've not got. It's not like I'm going to be on Spotify, on Spotlight at the end of the week or anything. But you know, they've said, "Oh, we've received them, and you're over the first hurdle." But
that's it.
So you know. And I've downloaded a lot of, I've got a lot of radio station email addresses, and I'm just gonna, you know, so I just think, well, what else? You know, you might as well just work at getting them out. Yeah. This is the first interview I've ever done of this nature. Okay. So, to me, do a few, you know, get.
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You know what I mean? So
totally. Yeah, and if out of it, all that ends up is I've got a tiny little trickle of a kind of, you know, dare I say, income stream. That's wrong, really. But if I've raised if I've created an online profile, if you like, even if it's a tiny one, then that's, you know, that's something out of this lockdown, isn't it?
Brilliant.
And I'm also doing a bit of, you know, I've got new ideas. I mean, that's the crazy thing. It's funny, isn't it? When you run around to you're playing all the time. I would write the odd song. The odd song, but it would only be the ones that would come to me. The ones that you kind of wake up with, and you're like, oh bloody hell, I've got a song here. Whereas now, because I'm not playing so much, my head's in that I'm definitely in that space for writing. You know, so I'm you know, before you came online, I just sat with a guitar, and I mean, I'd never do that before. You know, because
it's having the time as well, isn't it? It's the time.
Totally.
That's the beauty. So
the headspace, I think, isn't it? And I'm sure lots of people. I'm sure I'm not unique. I'm sure a lot of people have found that. Yeah. And in a way, I hope going forward we can kind of preserve a little bit of that, really, because there's lots of people been doing things that perhaps they, you know, had perhaps fallen into the background. I don't know. I mean,
definitely.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think judging by the interviews I've been doing, you know, it's very definite that the lockdown has had quite a lot of positives for creativity, you know. So I mean, that's okay, but the isolation obviously is that's not the good thing. But
for some, it's been dreadful, isn't it? I mean, we've got our daughter was in Africa. Our daughter was in Botswana, and she and her boyfriend had just come over for a holiday just before all of the lockdown happened, and she's still with us.
Well, that's it, isn't it?
She couldn't go back, because
No.
as soon as it happened, they shut their borders. They literally were the day, you know, the day it was announced that we were in a pandemic situation, because obviously the health service in Botswana isn't in any way as robust. And the first thing they did was ban alcohol sales, which was an interesting, because they figured a lot of emergency admissions are as a result of alcohol consumption, which you know
probably is.
So it's sensible. Exactly. And so bless her, she's the two of them have had to completely reconfigure their lives, you know. And I'm sure a lot of people fit into that category, and you know.
Right, final question, mate.
Okay.
Final question. Is there anybody you would like to thank for being here musically now?
Wow. The problem is a lot of my heroes are dead. I mean, Chris Cornell, I adore. I think I just love him. Amy Winehouse. So they have to be here now.
No, it could be anybody.
But I mean, to me, I mean, John Bonham was the reason why I played the drums. I mean, I used to sit sort of in my bedroom with a set of drumsticks before I even had a drum kit, playing along to you know, is it A Whole Lot of Love? You know, that one. and obviously Rush, I can remember I was no Alex Lifeson, but I used to sit there and, you know, trying to play 2112.
Yeah.
So all of those are people I really, you know, I really thank. And it's just been so many people that I've met that have just kind of, you know, just been encouraging, you know, when you, because you know what it's like when you start, you might as well just decide on the way in what instrument you're going to play. It doesn't really matter because you're going to spend so much time in that sweaty little room. You'll get the skills, won't you? You'll learn how to play the stuff. Where it's the enthusiasm, isn't it? It's just that will to be in a sweaty room with lots of other, you know, people just bashing away at it. And I think certainly when I worked in the schools, certainly the biggest problem I noticed with the kids was they almost wanted to kind of figure out how to do it right because they were scared of doing it wrong. So rather than play, they just sit there holding the instrument and try and work out how they could possibly start without making a mistake. You know, and you kind of have to make the mistakes, don't you? You have to be terrible to get good. You know, I think.
No. Right. Well, look, Tony, thanks for really so much for giving me the time. You know,
hey man, it's been a pleasure. It's been really nice. I've really enjoyed it. I didn't know whether I would. I thought I was going to be scared.
No. Yeah. Good luck with everything, mate. And
thank you.
Keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I will do. Definitely. All the best.
All right. Take care, mate. Bye.
You too. All the best. Cheers.